Revenge, Book 2 in the New World series. Written by Stephen Llewelyn and performed by Chris Barrie.
Chapter 7. Broken. Major, that woman is threatening what small measure of stability we have left, complained Dr. Satnam Patel. They were seated in the privacy of Major White's security office, just minutes after breaking up the gathering in embarkation, and he kneaded his brow in silent frustration. After a few moments' introspection, he turned to the other counsellor present. "What do you think, Mother Sarah?" Her answer was immediate.
"Satnam's right. Coxedge is dangerous. She's just using this crisis for her own ends to soak up the limelight and elbow her way into authority. We've seen enough politicians like her over the years. Far be it from me to take against another human soul, especially as we have so few right now, but she could bring us to ruin. We just can't afford the damage she might do to our authority right now."
A look of apology crossed her face, but she pressed on.
"I know how bad that sounds, but I've come to trust the senior staff on this mission. Trust them with my life and the lives of my fellow survivors. Being shipwrecked in the past is terrifying beyond anything I could have hitherto imagined, but they've helped me believe that, just maybe, we can find a way to survive the tragedy that's been unloaded on us. Weak leadership now, along with who knows what kind of crazy deals she might want to broker with the Nazis, would almost certainly see the end of most, if not all of us."
She looked pointedly at Satnam, taking his hand in hers.
"I'm a woman of peace, true peace, without political agenda. But that said, I'll stand with my friends against all who wish them harm, simply because of their birthright or race."
Patel smiled, squeezing her hand in return. "Thank you, Sarah." He turned back to White. "However, it's not just for me or indeed the other races represented aboard our ship that I speak, Major. If they destroy the timeline, they will wipe out the majority of their own people too, the good and the bad along with almost everyone else. These people, our people, that is, the human race to follow, even the vastly powerful Caesars and Napoleons of our history, are like babes in our arms at this juncture. If we give up our foothold in this time, they will be helpless to defend themselves from oblivion. I have to agree with Sarah in that there can be no deals with the Nazis, and any weakness on our part will assure the end of everything and everyone we have ever known. I get the feeling that Miss Coxedge cares nothing for this state of affairs. Her only agenda is to come out on top. She clearly believes herself to be clever and subtle. Maybe she even thinks she can bring the hound to heel, I do not know. However, sticking with the same metaphor, this cannot be done when the dog is mad." White blew out his cheeks despairingly. "My every instinct is to simply take her away and lock her up in a dark hole somewhere until this is all over. Maybe not let her out even then." He rubbed his eyes again, clearly exhausted. "But if we do that, we play right into her hands, don't we? We exhibit exactly the behavior she's accusing us of, and she knows it. So, what do we do?" "If she wishes to talk with the enemy, maybe we should let her," suggested Patel. Sarah and White blinked in surprise. Patel shrugged. "Well, she knows very little about this pod, at least that is of strategic importance. The same goes for the New World, for that matter. We could send her out to meet with them, thus showing our willingness to seek a peaceful resolution, and when it inevitably goes wrong, we may simply find it too difficult or costly to, shall we say, mount a meaningful rescue. Is there any doubt that we would be safer if she was not here among us?" Sarah and White looked at one another. White spoke first. "Satnam, you sound like a regular guy, making common-sense decisions to protect your people." Patel waited patiently. When White was not forthcoming with anything further, he asked, "Is that a bad thing, Major?" "No, sir. It's just that the course you're suggesting doesn't sound political. Is it possible we can just put all such nonsense behind us here? I'm pretty sure Jill Baines would back us."
That does make sense, Sarah agreed slowly, working through the idea. However, what starts out as absolute sense in politics has a habit of leaping right over the middle way to dive straight into tyranny.
So, what do you suggest? Asked White. We try and fix politics?
No, I'm just saying, and I'm using colloquialisms to make a point here as we're talking about a Brit politician, the hard right needs the loony left to keep them honest, and the loony left need the hard right to stop them doing anything stupid. It's a balancing act, same the world over. We have all kinds of folks here. Overwhelmingly, they're good people. How do you think they'll react if we simply remove a political rival because she's inconvenient? And what about her followers? Some of those folks in Embarkation were actually buying her rhetoric.
True, Patel agreed simply. But back in our own time, there are billions of people crowding the world. Here, our survival hangs by a thread, and it would take but one fool to cut it. In all human history, the stakes may never have been this high. Besides, if she wants to talk to them, letting her might buy us some time. And if she genuinely wishes to find out what they want, let them show her.
And if we never see her again?
Pressed Sarah. Patel shrugged again. I doubt it will prevent me from sleeping, Sarah. God knows what Jill and the others are going through at this very moment, but I remember what Coxedge put her through immediately before she left. That was enough for me. We are trying to deal within a moral framework with one who has no morals.
Sarah nodded thoughtfully. And if we open the door and invite the devil in to discuss the errors of his ways, he will simply help himself to our valuables.
Patel flashed a momentary smile. I prefer hard-wiring the doorbell to the mains. White responded with his customary half-smile as he viewed his fellow councillors with new respect. He knew it was wrong to presume, but he had expected more dithering and hand-wringing from a scientist and a priest. He would not call them ruthless, but they were certainly serious about the survival of the group, which sounded like the full band to his ears.
All right, I can't argue with your logic, but first things first. We need to wait until we hear from Captain Baines. We can't do anything until then, other than pray.
He added genuinely, glancing to Sarah.
Once we know the score, God help us, but we may have to come to terms with the enemy anyway. Maybe Coxedge will surprise us.
Gleason unconsciously covered his mouth with his hand when the New World was struck. The grappling cables had released the enemy warship. Everything was going exactly to plan when their cheers suddenly strangled in their throats. The explosion erupted from the hovering Leviathan's underbelly, near her bow and to the port side. One of the heat-resistant plates that covered her retracted landing gear was completely blown away, partially vaporized. The heavy hydraulic strut housed behind it showed damage clear even from the ground, although from that distance it was impossible to discern the extent. This alone would have been problematic enough. The ship needed all four of her stout landing struts to land. But Gleason's gut really clenched as he saw the destruction continue aft. The shell, fired from the last word as she turned over that final time, had struck the New World obliquely, damaging not only the landing gear, but also skipping into one of the rocket thrusters that held the ship suspended above her victim. The crew on the ground could only watch in horror as a twisted déjà vu unfolded before their eyes. For the second time in just minutes, they saw secondary explosions carry through the hypergolic fuel system of a giant ship, crippling her. From the little basic training Gleason had received from Singh, he knew the system was less critical than the main engines he had destroyed upon the last word, but the last word had been on the ground in a completely powered-down, passive state. Although the explosion that struck the New World was a full order of magnitude less powerful, she was little more than a cargo ship, despite her vastness, merely a lorry to the last word's battle tank, and in no way designed to repel cannon fire. Her safety systems came to life almost immediately, cutting fuel supplies and sealing off damaged areas. But the laws of physics would not be so easily assuaged. The strike team watched as their ship, their hope, began to drift, as if she remained only notionally under the pilot's control. The deafening explosion rocked the bridge. Ears buzzing, the crew were assaulted by myriad alarms from systems all over the ship. She rocked again as secondary explosions tore through her belly. It took but a fraction of a second for extensive damage to spread through the New World. They were in trouble, and Captain Baines knew it. She got to her feet, staggered, and fell back into her seat. The violence of the initial explosion had thrown her forward and sideways in her crash webbing, cracking her forehead against a control console. She could feel her left eye already beginning to close. Teeth gritted against the pain, she shouted above the clamour of alarms to demand a report. Lieutenant Singh, Sergeant Jackson, Tim and his mother Patricia Norris were also returning to their senses. Thankfully, no one appeared seriously hurt, yet. Singh called up a damage report list, while the Sarge used his good arm to quiet the sirens and klaxons that were going off everywhere. "An explosion in one of the bow thrusters, Captain," the pilot yelled above the whistling in his ears and the din all around him. "Automatic fire suppression and emergency protocols have been activated." He fought the helm to arrest the New World's wayward movement and gravity's irresistible embrace. It took a moment for Baines to realize that the comm was also shouting for attention. "Bridge, this is Baines." "Captain, we've been hit by a shell from the enemy vessel," babbled the frantic, disembodied voice of her chief engineer. "We know, Hero. We got our kill, but it seems she had one last trick up her sleeve. Try to remain calm. Are you okay down there?" Direct as ever, Nasaki was shouting, genuine fear in his voice. "It'll be us who are killed if we don't land." "He's right, Captain," Singh concurred. "We barely have control of her. Also," Lieutenant Singh and Nasaki spoke in perfect tandem, "the landing gear's been damaged." "So, by land," Hiro elucidated further, "I mean crash, and as gently as possible." Baines cursed inwardly. "Chief, can you effect repairs to the landing gear while we're still in the air?" "Captain, we can crash land the ship in a controlled manner immediately, or allow her to crash all on her own, when she no longer responds to the helm or our thrusters fail. Either way, we're going down." "Sandy?" Baines looked to the pilot beseechingly. "I can give you a minute, maybe two," Singh replied on open channel, the edge of despair in his voice. "Choose a landing site right now." "What if we put down over water?" asked Tim, intruding into the panicked exchange. "I thought of that," Singh replied, without looking up from the controls. "We'll never make it to the sea." "No." Tim released his restraints and rushed over to the scanning suite operated by the Sarge. The grizzled veteran gave up his chair, allowing the young man to pull up maps of the region, pieced together from their satellite telemetry. "When we went out recently to undertake the first survey of the area with Captain Douglas, we found a wide valley clearing with a large body of fresh water. Do you remember, Lieutenant? Ah, here it is. Yes, and that's us. Please look at this." He sent the satellite image to Singh's station with their current location clearly marked, to help the pilot understand the geography at a glance. Maybe," Singh commented vaguely, splitting his attention between the image and the uncooperative helm. "If we hit water at the wrong angle, it'll be like hitting concrete," Hiro warned over the comm. "I know," Tim replied boldly. "But Sandeep won't allow that to happen, will you?" Singh rolled his eyes. "Give me the coordinates now." Tim complied immediately, and leaving the pilot to begin his work, turned to Baines. "Captain, the lake is only a few degrees off course from our way back to the pod. We should be able to put down no more than 5 or 6 miles away from them. Close enough for them to help us, yeah?" Though fear and shock caused him to shake involuntarily, she admired the young man's determination. He needed hope, and true or false, she would give him some. Smiling despite her splitting headache, she replied, "That's right, Tim. Good work. That'll give us the chance we need to land safely away from the enemy and fix any damage." Singh turned and raised an eyebrow. She caught his gaze and shook her head almost imperceptibly. Having waited painfully for Tim to finish his task, Patricia Norris now checked him over. "I'm okay, Mum." He resisted his mother's interference tetchily. Satisfied that this was indeed the case, she moved on to Baines. "Captain, you've really caught yourself a good one." She noted Baines's florid black eye and the bleeding cut to her brow. "Let me see. You'll need a few stitches when we get back. Look up at the light, please." Baines winced. "Ow, that's bright. Yes, I think you've got a small concussion to go with that black eye." "Not much we can do about it at the moment." Baines grimaced as the pain stabbed at her again. "I'm okay, Patricia, really. Now you, Tim, everybody strap yourselves back in. That goes for you guys down in engineering too, hero. This could be a very, very rough ride. Sandy, no offense, but you're becoming a dab hand at crashing this ship gently. Please serve us another triumph." "I wouldn't have to keep crashing if people would stop trying to blow her up."
Douglas opened his eyes and wondered if he had. The little room where he holed up with Hemmings was pitch black. "Lieutenant Hemmings, I can't see you. Elizabeth." He felt his way around in the dark, crawling in what he believed to be the direction of the door. Feeling across the wall, he found the controls, but they were dead. He gripped the edges of the door and pulled, sliding the panel sideways. Dim emergency lighting spilled into the room from the hallway. He turned back to find Hemmings slumped and unmoving in a corner. Douglas moved quickly to kneel at her side, checking her vitals. When the ship had turned the first time, the force with which he struck the wall had knocked him sick. However, Lieutenant Hemmings had spared him the worst of it, granting him a semi-soft landing. He saw now, in that awful light, that his luck had come at a cost. The very highest. He sat back on his haunches and closed his eyes against tears. No. Taking a steadying breath, he leaned forward once more, hoping he was mistaken, but the brave young woman lay lifeless before him, her neck at a sickening angle. Holding his head in his hands, he sobbed gently as desperation clawed at him, dragging him towards darkness. His ballistic weight had killed her. He had felt the crunch at the time, without realizing the full consequences. Leaning forward one last time, he closed her eyes gently. "I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I'm so sorry, lassie. God bless." Wiping his eyes, he got to his feet. Taking another deep breath, he stood to attention, saluting a fallen comrade. "Lieutenant Elizabeth Hemmings, it was my honor to know you, even for such a short time. I swear, I'll make sure people know what you did here. And I'll never give up, not until Schultz has been stopped. And as long as I live, you'll be remembered." He brought his hand down smartly, turning on his heel, and strode from the room, mind ablaze with thoughts of revenge. Sargo Lemelisk eyed Del Bond with disdain. Bond looked away, unwilling to meet his glare. Their guard had left them just for a little while. It was not as though they could do anything from a locked cell. Bond, on the other hand, realized that he was feeling rather exposed without the protection of their captors. "You cowards!" Lemelisk spat now they were alone. "If you'd helped me, we could have made a break for it. Clearly there's some sort of crisis going on. That was our chance." "I'm not a field operative," Bond replied huffily. Lemelisk literally spat this time, following it up with, "You're a nothing, Derek." Bond flinched at the hated use of his Christian name. "I failed to see how I could have helped you anyway. We were outnumbered and overmatched." "You failed, all right. What good is a pen-pushing politician like you on a mission like this?" "You may yet eat those words." Lemelisk jumped to his feet and strode across the cell, making his co-prisoner slide into a corner, raising his arms over his head protectively. "You're pathetic," he snarled. "It's not even worth the effort of putting you out of your misery." Bond continued to cower in the corner, but struck back verbally. "I tell you you're wrong. I heard the guards talking before you came round. Apparently the illustrious crew of do-gooders aboard this pod are having some political problems of their own just now. There's talk of a new piece on the game board. Another politician, apparently. I'm sure you'd hate her." Lemelisk eyed Bond quizzically. "One of ours?" "I'm not sure. You know how old man Schultz and his mad granddaughter like their little secrets. All I know is this new player is getting everyone all worked up and building factions among our captors. This can only be good for us." You may mock me for being weak, Lebelisk, and I'm sure you're a master of your trade or you wouldn't have been hired. But you need to realize that uprisings don't just happen, not without politicians. No matter how much you revolutionary types like to pretend to the contrary, politics is everything, and I, too, am a master.
Ha! I could kill you with hardly an effort, mocked Lemelisk. Bond got back to his feet.
I don't doubt it, but people from my profession can kill a world with a word. You won't believe what I'm going to accomplish when I get out of here.
Revenge, Book 2 in the New World series. Written by Stephen Llewelyn and performed by Chris Barrie. New installments are uploaded weekly. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like or comment. Visit the link in the description for free New World companion stories, available for download as ebooks.